Hi, this is John from Sharp Mountain Games, and in this video, let's talk about my own solo role-playing journey. Now, it's not really about me. I'm really making this video hoping that it will encourage you in yours. So let's talk about it after the intro. Hi folks, and welcome to Sharp Mountain Games. Here we talk about group games, solo games, and we even have some actual plays in our live tab. You can also check out our print and PDF products at Amazon, Roll20, Drive-Thru, and Lulu, and they're all linked below. Now let's get to the good stuff. The solo branch of the hobby really seems to be exploding lately, at least in terms of available products. There's a lot out there you can buy. But I think in a lot of ways it's been there all along. Now I'm hoping in this video to show you how it's developed in my own life, but more importantly to encourage you to try it as well. So let's get started. I think we all started solo gaming by playing as kids. In a way it's a microcosm of RPGs in general. Sometimes you had group play, if a friend or your sibling was around. But if no one was around, wouldn't you still get out the Fisher-Price people or your Star Wars figures and make up your own little tales? I certainly know I did when I was a kid. And isn't that a lot like group and solo games today? It doesn't have to be all one or the other. Sometimes you do group, sometimes you do solo. Now later I'm thinking like in middle school came things like choose your own adventure books. Now I had some of them, but I never really did a lot of them. In some ways they always sort of felt disjointed. At least for me, because you were telling like several tales and you were telling it several times. So it was a lot different than reading a traditional book. But certainly those choose your own adventure books, and there's even game books available today. And certainly they're solo RPG adjacent. They're kind of the same thing. Now as a teen, I think that creating characters was about all the solo play I did. But it did give me a chance to think about, okay, how to design a character, maybe even a little bit about their motivations, at least a little bit. FOSS's Star Trek was great for this. I remember this in high school. Making characters, that was like a little mini game in itself because you went through a PC's whole early career and you made dice rolls to randomly see what happened. And that's a lot like oracles on some solo RPGs today. Now in college and grad school, I did try solo play using the West End Games Star Wars edition. I ran some combats, but I think using that system was a little bit of a mistake because overall the system has a lot of dice rolls, especially in combat. So if you're trying to manage multiple characters in solo play, I don't think that's the best system. I think it's a good system overall, but I don't think it's a good one for solo play. And I also don't think that, it never really crossed my mind to consider the idea of a continuing solo campaign. I don't know why, but it was something maybe hadn't been developed at that point, at least not for me. Now, over the years, things really got busy with education, career, and family. I'm sure this is a story that many of us have. I'd buy and I'd read RPG stuff, but the itch to actually play was still there. Now, most of my solo stuff at that time consisted of maybe whipping up a few characters, maybe running them through some combats to see how the mechanics of different games worked. I'd also use it to test adventures that I'd written. At that point, I was back to running group games and some convention games, not too many, but some. So sometimes I really needed to test fly things, before I put them out in front of an audience. So where are we today? I would say really the past 2 years has been a real blossoming for solo RPGs for me. Now, I've run a few group Star Trek and Star Wars games, but, well, I wanted more. Now, I didn't want to upset the apple cart, to try to convert my regular fantasy game into a sci-fi campaign. I just didn't know how the players, if they would all want to come along for that. So I decided to strike out on my own a little bit. And I really think for me, the big change recently is journaling. Now, you don't have to journal to solo RPG, and I don't play like journal solo RPGs. I know they're out there. I think there's one called 1,000 Year Vampire and a few others. That's not it. I'm just saying I use the journals to keep a record of my solo games. And by recording things in a notebook, that really made it stick for me. It's a record I can look back on, and also I've definitely used it to mine ideas for group games. I have 2 con games this spring, and they're right from my solo journals. And I think also watching solo channels has been great too. Now, I particularly like Solo Spelunking and Mage Hammer, and I'll link them below for you. And I'm sure there's many, many other great channels out there. Those are just my 2 favorites. And I learned a lot about how a solo session can go and, what it might look like watching them. I really wish I'd had those videos, let's be honest, decades ago. I really wish I had had them earlier in my life to see, okay, here's how, you can set up a solo game. Now let's talk about, well, how does all this relate to you, you're watching this video? I'm not saying give up your group games. I certainly don't want you to, go so far into this that you neglect family, work, or exercise. Those are very important. However, I also don't want you to wait on other people to run the systems, the genres, the games you really want to run. If you wait for other people, those opportunities may never happen. Like never. You have this great game you want to run, and it will never happen if you wait on other people sometimes. Now, if you do get the chance to run it with other people, that's great. If you've run it solo and then you run it with other people, you're getting, 2 times the experience for your work. I just think that's great. And, if you do get to run a campaign based on one of your solo journals, you'll have all these great adventures just ready to run with them. Now, at some point, we all stopped playing with our toys on the parlor floor. At least I suspect we did. Maybe solo games are one way to reclaim a little bit of that joy. Are there other ways and other great creative pursuits? Absolutely. But I think this is a pretty good one, and I think it's one that you don't want to miss, or at least not to give it a try. Now, how about you? Let us know in the comments where you are in your solo journey. And if you need some advice or encouragement, I bet myself and other folks in the comments will provide that too. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, folks.